Welcome back to another edition of the North Star Takes podcast. I'm Bailey Paulicki. He's Jacob Liberta. If you're a Minnesota sports fan or a sports fan in general, please hit that subscribe button. And if you're a Minnesota Timberwolves fan, give this like button or give this video a like as well, and help us reach out to more Minnesota Timberwolves fans. Today we're going to be talking trade for the Timberwolves. They've been off to an okay start so far, 12-15 on the young season. They've had a couple long losing streaks. They've had a stretch where they've won 7 out of 8 games. So it's kind of been up and down, which is fair to expect with a team that is kind of still coming together. Definitely an incomplete roster. They seem to be lacking size. They seem to be lacking a legit backup point guard option with D'Angelo Russell being hurt every now and then. So let's kind of talk some trade. I mean, we've got some guys that are obviously the Pacers are talking about, entering a rebuild, and they're willing to shop some of their important players. So maybe we can start right off the bat with Myles Turner, who appears to be the popular name in, across all of Timberwolves fandom, Timberwolves writers, Timberwolves bloggers, podcasters, etc. Myles Turner is the number one name. It's no longer Ben Simmons. I think that's kind of out of the question, especially with how well D'Angelo Russell is playing.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think Myles Turner, he's averaging 12.8 points a game, 7.5 rebounds, and he leads the league in blocks per game right now. So obviously that's very impressive stat. I feel like his rebounding numbers could be a little better, and he's shown to be a better rebounder in the past, but I think it'd be a super smart move to put a big like this next to Cat, so Cat doesn't have to focus as hard on defending the rim on defense, and he could probably be a little more aggressive offensively too, knowing he's probably not going to pick up the fouls on defense. So what are your thoughts on getting Myles Turner, and is he your preferred guy to get?
Yeah, this kind of seems like the guy among all of the Timberwolves rumors these days as far as bolstering this roster and turning into more of a well-rounded group and more of a formidable playoff team, I'd say, looking ahead to the end of this season. So I'd be pretty excited about Myles Turner. I don't know yet if he's really my number one guy I'd want to go after, but I think he kind of fits the bill for what they really need. Probably just because he's basically a floor spacer on offense because he could shoot nearly 40% from three, which is kind of nice. And then obviously, especially when you consider the team percentages right now for us, I mean, you got Cat and Oz leading the way last I checked, and then everybody else is hanging out below 35%. So that's not great. So to add another 3-point shooter is always cool. And then a guy on the other end who can play defense with the best of them. I mean, like you said, he leads the league in blocks per game. So this is exactly the type of guy you want. And like you said, maybe Cat can play a little bit looser then, and maybe not be afraid to pick up a foul here and there, just because you have that insurance that Turner will at least be out there. So
yeah,
I'd say there's a lot to like about this, probably from a basketball standpoint, bros. But as far as from a personality standpoint, I don't know if it would quite fly, because I think he's looking to be a very integral part of a winning team, or maybe at least a team, be the main focus. But I feel like those are just unrealistic expectations that he won't be able to find anywhere, at least anywhere good. So I think it's going to have to be come from him, where he makes the realization that he could be definitely a strong contributing piece to a winning team, but he's not going to be anywhere close like a cornerstone or anything. Because I mean, I think that's just out of the question for his game and what he really can do. So I'd like this if he's willing to be the fourth guy here, but I don't know if he really would be or not. That remains to be seen. But from a basketball standpoint, it makes all sense in the world.
Yeah, and I agree with you. Like, there's no world where he's going to get traded to a team and be the guy or the second guy. Like, I don't see that happening, because teams that are going to trade for him are contending teams. And those teams, odds are likely that they already have a star player or a couple star players. So I think, if you could talk him into playing with Karl-Anthony Towns, having two bigs, playing with D'Angelo Russell, who apparently he's been close with since high school.
I didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah, I read an article. There's a connection of those two going back, a ways. I think it was D'Angelo Russell's father. Someone wanted Myles Turner to play with D'Lo at Ohio State.
Oh, okay.
So I found that to be kind of interesting.
That's really interesting.
So there's a little bit of a connection there. Obviously, Anthony Edwards is an exciting young player that I'm sure a lot of people would like to play with. So, yeah, if he can just make that realization that, okay, you're probably not going to be the guy, but you'll be in a great system where he can probably come right in, make a huge impact, both offensively.
Still get paid.
Yeah, exactly. He's still going to get paid. And the Wolves kind of have the pieces to trade to Indiana because if they're going for a rebuild, we can trade them draft picks, we can trade them expiring contracts because we have those things. So it makes a lot of sense to get a deal done with Indiana. And if it's not going to be Myles Turner, which he's still probably my preferred trade candidate just because we lack so much size. And I think if you can kind of stagger him and Cat, like obviously they'll play together in the crunch moments, but you can stagger him when Cat needs a break. Myles Turner's on the floor. Myles Turner needs a break. Cat comes back in. You can play Cat and Nas together. You can play Nas a little bit with Myles Turner. Like it changes everything. Jared Vanderbilt's still going to play, so I just think having this team just needs one more big, I think, to really solidify the defensive end, which defense has been pretty good so far. Don't get me wrong, but especially offensively too. Like he's not just a guy that sits in the paint. Like like you said, he'll get out to the 3-point line. He'll space the floor, which could open up driving lanes for Anthony Edwards. Open
And
up more,
Cat.
yeah, Cat as well, and maybe open up more space for cuts, like a guy, like Beasley. Beasley cuts to the basket every now and then. I think he could benefit from having better floor spacing as well. So,
Sure.
but if it's not going to be Myles Turner, another pacer that we're keeping an eye on as well. They haven't mentioned interest in trading him. It's mostly just been Turner and Sabonis and Karis LeVert that have kind of been on the rumor mill. But Malcolm Brogdon, who's having a fantastic season, he just seems like he's getting better every year. So, what are your thoughts on bringing him in?
I think this would be fantastic. Obviously, a completely different fit than Myles Turner just because he's a guard and Turner's a big. But I think Brogdon could be another thing that the Wolves need as a facilitator to move the ball around just a little bit more because I think we can get stagnant at times where play a lot of ISO and just don't move. So
Yeah.
that's the thing Finch loves to do. So I think Brogdon would be just that. And obviously, he's pretty stout defensively too. I think he's among the best of them in the NBA as far as defensive guards go.
Yeah.
So I think this would make a lot of sense as well. And like you say, he can average 20 a game for you. So like
Mm-hmm.
even if he's moving the ball and guys can't hit shots, well he can hit shots of his own, and I think that's huge. And like you can see when he's averaging at least 5.5 in all three major categories, that's something to really recognize. So
Yeah.
um, I think he'd be a great ad. I think he'd be great to play next to all these stars that we already have. I don't know. Like you said, the biggest thing is if the Pacers are willing to trade him or not. I mean, if they are, I think it's definitely worth exploring. But then again, his asking price would probably be pretty high just because he is a pretty good player. So I don't know
Yeah.
really what we'd have to move in a deal for that. But at this point, I'd be willing to move Beasley in any sort of deal for either of these Pacers that we're talking about right now,
Yeah.
and then we'd probably have to throw in if we got like Turner, it'd probably have to be Nas Reed, I would guess. And
Potentially. Yeah.
yeah, and with Brogdon, we'd probably have to move like a Jaden McDaniels. I don't know, something like that. So I think this could be worth it, but at the same time, I don't know how realistic it is or not either.
Exactly. And it's going to depend like how much the Pacers value draft picks versus because like they could be down on a guy like Jaden McDaniels and not quite see the upside, or a Nas Reed. Yeah, he's a nice player, but is he really going to be like a franchise cornerstone? Probably not. So, I mean, it's possible you could get these guys for like a Beasley, a Prince, and a couple draft picks or something, but
Mhm.
probably maybe not Brogdon. Brogdon would probably cost more, but the only issue I would have with having Brogdon, which I mean, he seems like he can play anywhere. He's a selfless player. He's a good player all around. The only issue I'd have is you'd be breaking up your starting five in some sort of fashion.
Yeah,
And the
true.
Wolves starting five of D'Lo, Pat Bev, Ant, Cat, and Vanderbilt have the best net rating in the NBA of any group of five. And if you get Brogdon, he's probably inserted into the starting lineup with Pat Bev going to the bench. I don't know if maybe that could be a seamless transition because Brogdon's just a good all around player. Like you mentioned, he's a better scorer than Pat Bev.
Mhm.
But I don't know if I want to tinker with that at all. And it would be nice to basically have 3 point guards though that can all kind of run the show and they can mix and match. And that way, if D'Lo's hurt, you still got a couple point guards that are playing. Or Pat Bev gets hurt, I think that's the big thing. But at the same time, it's kind of an interesting development now too with Jalen Noel getting some run. He's been playing a little better lately as well. So maybe they want to see a little more what they have in him. But I think Brogdon's more of a long shot. It would be an absolute luxury to have. But then I still think this team would be lacking size still.
Yeah, I think you're definitely right there. I think you brought up a lot of good points too that provoked a few thoughts for me. I think for one, I'd say adding Brogdon, like you mentioned, with the 3 point guards between Pat Bev, D'Lo, and uh, Brogdon. Like like you mentioned, if D'Lo goes down again, that'd be nice insurance to have because lately, I mean, this season's been really evident. It's been like day with D'Lo on the floor, D'Lo off the
Yeah.
floor, how much we could really sink without D'Lo. So I think that'd be nice to have. And on the other hand, what was that other point I was going to bring up? I think it was something. I don't know. I'll think of it. I
Sounds
lost my
good.
train of thought there, but yeah, I'll think of it. But
Yeah, we can
yeah,
definitely come back to that.
yeah, there's a lot to be considered here, and like you said, that's what it's going to be. I think it was maybe seeing if this starting five is like you said, you want to keep together, and I do too at this point. But it's just, do you truly believe it's going to be sustainable or not over the course of a whole season? I don't know, but for
Yeah.
now, it's like you said, it's the best in the NBA. You don't really want to tinker with that too much if it's like you just want to ride it out as long as possible. It's just how long is that really going to last?
And the problem is, I don't really view Pat Bev as like a starting caliber player. I mean, he's been great for the Wolves. He's brought a nice culture in here. The
Oh yeah.
defense has massively improved, and I think he's got a lot to do with that.
Hmm.
And obviously, he's playing well with the starting group. But I mean, it makes a lot of sense to have him be the bench point guard. But then it's like, man, you're paying D'Lo max money, Cat max money. Brogdon's going to have a really nice contract.
Yeah.
Ant, you have to pay eventually too. You know, Beverly, you probably wouldn't be able to afford to bring him back next year at that rate. So, which Brogdon could kind of be the Beverly role without all the crap talking on the court. But
All the
um,
personality.
yeah, exactly. So I think I don't know. I'd be for it, but I just think it's a long shot, and I don't know. I don't know. I think they benefit more from having a true center, I guess, next to Cat.
Oh, cut out there for a second. Apologies.
No, you're good.
All right. But anyways, yeah, I was just gonna say, like I said, Brogdon would just be he'd bring everything probably to a better degree as far as basketball talent goes on the floor. But like you said, Beverly has the intangibles, like as far as being the guy that gets everybody hyped up on and off the floor. So
For sure. So let's kind of move on. Are there any other intriguing names out there that kind of get you going a little bit who, they're kind of flying under the radar right now, but someone you could potentially see being moved that you'd like to see on this team?
like you said, with the Ben Simmons thing off the table, and I feel like you'd have to fork over a lot to get him. It just won't be worth to change your team that much. If you look around the league, I think the theme is for us adding to our roster is what makes most sense is probably another big, like you said. I think that'd round out this roster a lot better than anything else. And I know you brought up this before, and I know they're not exactly, at least not that I've heard, actively shopping them or anything like that. But looking at the struggling teams and who could be moved, maybe the Pelicans with Valanciunas. Honestly,
Yes.
I would consider a big bruiser like that on the inside. I think that would be cool. So that's probably a guy I'd look at. But again, I don't know how much realism there is to that. But just having another big physical dude to be on our team for a change.
Yeah, I think Valanciunas would be a ton of fun, especially because it always seems like Cat seems to struggle against him. So it'd be nice to have him on our side.
Yeah.
And I just think having a guy like that in general would free up Cat so much more when we're going up against these big, strong centers.
Mhm.
So I don't know. I think it'd be super beneficial. I think it's worth a shot at least to see what that would look like. But a guy for me, he's actually played for the Timberwolves before, and it's Robert Covington.
Oh, Rocco. I love
I
Rocco.
I love Rocco. The only problem is you'd probably basically be swapping him for Prince. Obviously, you'd have to give up more than Prince to get Rocco, but it'd basically be a roster swap of Covington and Prince in terms of their role. But I don't know. Covington was such a good player when he was here. He was just solid on both ends of the floor. Him and Cat are really good buds. I truly think he misses it here. I think he really loved his time here. I was reminded of this the other day on Twitter, but when he got traded from here, he actually came back before he went to Philly. Or no, where did he go after here? It wasn't
Oh, you went to
Philly.
Houston.
Houston.
Yep.
Yep. And
You watched the game.
he came back and watched a game when he was no longer on the team.
Yeah,
Didn't he sit next to like Glenn Taylor or somebody?
I think so. It was somebody prominent.
Yeah, like that's pretty crazy. Like you don't see that very often. So
Never.
I don't know. That'd just be another solid, two-way player that he can hit some threes. He's obviously going to play good defense. It wouldn't really help you in the size department, although he did play a little power forward for us back in the day. But
Yes.
I think it's another intriguing player because I think you get more out of him than you're getting out of Taurean Prince. So
Oh, totally agree. Because Torian Prince's role, if he can't hit threes, then he shouldn't even be in the rotation.
right, because I mean Prince, he's a decent defender, but at least to the eye test, he's just not that athletic of a player. He's not that fast,
Mm-hmm.
so he doesn't bring much value if he's not going to hit open shots because he's going to get open shots on offense. He's a
Exactly.
spacer, but if he's not going to hit them, then that's going to make it tough. So Rocco is kind of my intriguing name just because it'd be kind of fun to see him get brought back and kind of see what
Yeah,
his role could be on a team like this.
totally agree. I'd be 100% behind that.
So, yeah, any other intriguing names for you before we take off here?
That might come to me off the top of my head. I think it'll become more clear as we get closer to the trade deadline, obviously.
And what's crazy is this video is going to be released on the 15th. And the 15th is officially when some of these guys that got signed or traded in this past offseason can get traded. Because a few of them had to wait until a couple months into the season. So I think you'll see a lot more trade activity start to pick up here within the next couple of weeks just because players are finally eligible to get traded, especially a lot of these guys are on expiring contracts. So
Sure. Got to keep an eye out for that.
yeah, I think this will be super exciting. I definitely think the Wolves are going to make a move because I think they have to if they're going to be serious about trying to contend in the West this season.
Mm-hmm.
So otherwise, they'll probably just be like the 9 or 10 seed. But my thing is, if they can kind of hang around here, stay close to these teams that are in the 6, 7, 8 range, like if you can make an impact trade like that, I mean that could turn things around quickly, and that you could jump up a little higher than maybe you were expecting.
Yeah, it just depends how many games you think we can win when we're at full strength, and how many games we're really going to play at full strength. I think that's the
Yeah.
biggest thing you got to identify. Because if you think we're going to play at full strength for a majority of the season, I won't mind riding it out with this current group for the rest of the way just to see what that looks like. But at the same time, if you don't feel confident that these guys staying healthy, then any one injury could take you out of it like
Yeah.
completely. So I think then you gotta identify who would be valuable to you in the trade market to be able to keep you afloat in those times when guys like D'Lo or something miss a stretch of games, because otherwise that could sink you if we don't make any additions to the roster and some of these guys get hurt.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's kind of my thing for wanting Myles Turner is like he's great insurance for if Cat goes down or if
Mhm.
Cat gets in foul trouble even. So and I
Yes.
think that those are two of our biggest problems. Obviously, D'Lo being out is a big problem too, but I'm kind of hoping we can see more development out of Jalen Noel. We'll see how that goes. But
Totally agree.
if anything, it's going to be more of an insurance policy rather than like a true um, extreme impact player. Like
Mhm.
Myles Turner can make a good impact defensively. He probably wouldn't make a huge impact offensively. But or like Malcolm Brogdon, I guess he could make a pretty good impact on both sides of the ball. But
Yeah.
so yeah, that'll do it for this edition of the North Star Takes podcast. Please be sure to hit that subscribe button and the like button as well. Give us a follow on both Twitter and Instagram, and leave your comments below what you think about the trade season coming up, who you want the Wolves to target, what you think their needs are. Leave your comments below, and we'll respond to them right away. So thanks for watching.